guys. So today will be the first time that I've recorded one of my own episodes in video. It's always been just audio, so I'm really excited for this. I also know that I haven't uploaded an episode of my own story or from anything going on in my own life since, I believe, November. I said I was going to take December off for some personal time. And then in January, I decided to do men's. I tried to do some men's story, men's mental health, and just kind of take even more time for myself. And some of those reasons being, I've been having a lot of physical, medical issues going on. A lot of my chronic illnesses have been flaring up. I've discovered some new issues going on. And so my body's basically telling me to slow down and start taking care of it. I've never really done that. I like to blame it on life. I like to say that life has never really given me the option to slow down or take care of myself. And in some sense, it hasn't. I've been working since I was 12. I've always worked very hard, physically laborious jobs because they felt like my only option. Became a single mom at 19. So I didn't really have time to do all this self-care that people talk about. But there are other ways to honor your body, and that's where the responsibility falls on me, and I can't blame it on life. I never really routinely saw a doctor. I didn't listen to my body. So I haven't honored myself. And in this season, I have finally learned what self-love and self-care really looks like. It doesn't have to be bubble baths and pedicures and, all these other things. So really have just been taking time for my physical health as well as my mental and emotional. I've had quite a bit on my personal plate. Many people that listen know that I don't just host a podcast. I run a home services business, which is very physically laborious, as well as a coaching business. And being a mom of 5 and being a wife and all the other titles that I hold. And again, just hadn't been prioritizing myself at all. And even after saying, I'm going to slow down, I really didn't. And it really took a couple of people who don't see me in person and don't get a lot of one-on-one time with me. Really, what they see of my life is on social media, telling me, you never stop. Like, every time I get on Facebook, like, you're posting that you're doing something. Like, and it's rarely for you. Like, and when they do talk to me, it's you're doing this for this person, or you have to go do this for this person. Like, I'm not doing anything, or I'm out hiking by myself, or, whatever. I'm never really ever doing anything for myself, or just not doing. I'm always moving and always going. So yeah, I disappeared for a little bit. I had some things to get control of. Like I said, there's a lot personally going on that I can't go into detail in, and I'm choosing to stay silent on for the time being. When things get settled, I definitely will be speaking on it publicly, as it is now even more so a part of my story. And will definitely go to show that, like I'm always preaching, healing is not linear. Even when you heal from one thing, life has not stopped. And so there's always the opportunity for something new to happen that you have to work through and heal from. But I definitely wanted to release one of my own episodes this week. I miss you guys. I miss recording. I have so much passion for this. And I just really wanted to speak on that. I know I've come on and talked about it before in one of my episodes, talking about my father-in-law and how touching he was. I definitely talked about going no contact with my mother and my sister, and how, it kind of brought up some of the childhood traumas. But I wanted to touch on that even more, I think, because since going no contact with them, my sister had her child, and I know this only because I had followed her midwife's Facebook page when we were still in contact. She had wanted me and my mom's opinion. She wanted us to follow her. And so I had. And when I had went no contact with my sister, I didn't even think about unfollowing this person. I like completely had forgot that I was even following this midwife's page. Until like the week of, and I seen that she had posted her baby, and I just knew immediately. She never names names, but she uses the first initial of the parent's last name. And so she said, to family D, whatever. And just, I know that looks aren't always, accurate, but I looked at this baby, and this baby looked just like my niece and my nephews, my sister's other children, and so many emotions. Because I'm not talking to this person. And I never even got a chance to tell my sister how I felt about her. I went no contact with my mom, and my sister disappeared out of my life. So happy for her. It's a beautiful baby, and I love babies, and I love family. And so I had what I deem a moment of weakness, because I know that for me, reaching out is not the right thing. But I reached out to my sister. I texted her, and I told her, I'm assuming that this baby that I see is yours. If I'm wrong, so be it. But I'm pretty damn sure this is your child. So congratulations. And then I just said, no matter what, I love you, and I want goodness for you and your family. And me and my sister both have iPhones, and we've always had red receipts on, and it said delivered, and to this day it has not been read, and my sister had her child in December. So there's been a lot of emotions about that. As well as, I had actually reached out to my mom and asked my mom to send me my tax information. For years, my mother had done my taxes. I was self-employed. My mother used to do my father's taxes when he owned his own business. It's just something she's really good at. She's always offered it to me and, two of my other siblings who are self-employed. Saves a lot of money. It's just been a thing in our family. But I needed those tax records, and they were on her computer. She had the login. So I had just texted her. I was like, hey, I need these. And she was like, give me a couple days. I'll print them off instead of emailing them to me. Whatever. And I'll mail them to you. And I'm like, okay. And after that conversation, again, kind of slipped my mind just in the day-to-day life, busy person kind of thing. Until I checked my mail one day, and it's a manila envelope with just my name on it and my address and no return address, which with the other situation I have going on is it's a little weird. I kind of live my life on edge, just from the other abuses that I've suffered and a lot of the situations that I haven't touched on yet that I've been in with domestic abuse, and a lot of the crowd that I used to hang out with. I'm always kind of on edge that someone's gonna come after me or whatever. That's a whole another story for a whole nother time. But so I was kind of what the hell is this? What could this be? And I opened it. It's my tax records. And so I'm like, okay, cool. But I was really stumped on why she didn't put a return address. And I'm sure a lot of you, as you're listening, you're thinking, because she doesn't want you to know where she's at, you've went no contact with her. Well, I know for a fact that my mother lives with my sister. And I have my sister's address. So it was just really weird to me that there was just this ominous, unnecessary step that just, I don't know. Continuing on, no contact. Nothing from my sister, nothing from my mother. New Year comes and goes. I didn't really expect them to reach out. Knowing them and knowing the history of our relationship, I am the one that has to initiate contact. I am the one that has to apologize. I am the one that has to say, let's have a conversation. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. But then I want to say it was 2 days ago, Saturday, I checked my mail, and there's a small envelope a white envelope, just a regular mailing envelope, again, with just my name on it, my address, no return address, and I recognize my mother's handwriting. My heart just, like, I don't want to say it drops, but it just, like, squeezes. Like, what is this? Why? So I go to my house. I go right into my bedroom because my kids are all in the living room and I'm already getting emotional and, like, so I go in my room and and I open the envelope and there's another envelope inside that says Katelyn's first haircut with the date that I got my first haircut. And it was 1998, like a long time ago. And I know other parents that hang on to things like this, but this was really surprising to me. And there was a letter in it, not even a letter, like a piece of paper, for anyone that's not watching the video, about 2 inches in length and like regular width of a letter, but like a piece of paper that just said like, I found this and figured you would want it. It should have been in your photo album. And so for context, when my mother sold my childhood home, her home here in Florida, the only home I've ever known, when she sold it after the divorce, she like minimized everything because her thing is that she wants to travel. And so she doesn't want a lot of physical belongings. She only lives with my sister when she's in state. And very nostalgic for me, but in our dining room of my childhood home, there was a wooden dresser with about, I want to say 5 or 6 drawers, like one of the tall dressers. And every single one of these drawers was packed to the brim with photos, like printed out at like Walmart or CVS photos, like physical photos, which a lot of people these days forget even existed. But like 8x10, not even 8x10 photographs from like every period of my life and before my life. My mother loved taking pictures. She loved documenting. So when she was going to sell her house, she went through that entire dresser. And there was a lot she got rid of, like memories she didn't want to hold on to or duplicates. And then she sorted child by child and she made a photo album for each one of her children so that they could have photos from each period from birth on, from all of the photos in age order. So I have that. And yeah, it's a really, really nice present. And so I get, in a sense, her thinking that I would want this in my photo album. But as a mother myself, I'm like, you kept that because it was your child's first haircut. Shouldn't you have an album of things like that as well? Like, I was under the impression that she also had an album of her children's, like, birth photos and, like, toddler age photos. Because those are memories you should also want to hold on to. So I'm like, why aren't you keeping this? Why are you saying, I don't want my first haircut. Like, I don't need the first lock of hair that was ever cut from my head. But whatever. Maybe I'm seeing it that way because I'm already hurt by this person and feel like she doesn't want any attachment to me. I don't know. But I did reach out to her. I did text her and ask her, like, hey, I'm assuming that this first haircut is from you. I don't think it's something my dad would have ever kept or had, and he doesn't have my address. So, I was like, so I'm assuming this is from you? And she's like, yes, just yes. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm just curious, like, don't you want to keep this? And she was like, well, no, it really should have been in your photo album. Like, I can keep it if you want. I just figured you would want it. And I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate it. And I didn't say anything after that. And so she didn't respond. And, like, I just got really angry and really sad. And I went out and I sat in the living room with my husband and my children, who were all kind of scattered throughout the house, and there were, respective bedrooms, and I think the younger two were in the living room with us. And as I'm sitting there, I'm just really, really in my head, and I just keep feeling all these emotions, and I can feel it bubbling up in my chest, and I'm like, I gotta go let this out. Like, I just wanted to scream. Which obviously I couldn't do that because my children are home with me. And no matter what healing I might need, there's a time and a place, and not traumatizing my children is a priority. So I went in my room and I laid down on my bed for a little bit, and I did start to cry, and I cried pretty hard. But more than sadness, I was so fucking angry. Because I still don't understand. I don't understand any of the things that happened to me as a child. I don't understand the way she treated me as an adult. And I'm not just angry at her. I'm angry at my sister. I'm angry at her just disappearing. For not understanding that my relationships with my siblings are not the same as the relationship with my parents. That I should be able to go no contact with my mom and not lose my sister. Or at least talk to me about it. We're adults. We're mothers. Like, we should be able to sit down and have a conversation. If you feel like I've wronged our mother and you're siding with her in a personal issue that doesn't concern you, but you want to talk about it, we could have talked about it. You just disappearing out of my life pisses me off. It hurts my feelings. But another part of the story that I haven't told anyone is that one of the things that happened after I cut contact with my mom is that I know my mother. I knew she would try to still have contact with my daughter, my 7-year-old, who I share custody currently with her father. And I knew if she wasn't talking to me, she would try to get a hold of her dad. So I had immediately texted her dad, my daughter's dad, and was like, hey, when you get a chance, let's talk. And so we jumped on the phone and I explained the situation to him. I said, obviously what you do on your time, I don't have any legal control of. What I'm asking you to do is respect me, respect what I have going on in my life. This is my mother, and I do not want her having contact with our daughter. And not out of spite, not because she's wronged me, but because she is an abuser. She is an emotional, mental, verbal, religious abuser. And I've already seen her start to implement her beliefs and her hatred onto my daughter. And so it's not just me. Part of the reason I cut my mother off wasn't just for me, it was for my children. Because this is not a person I want influencing my kids or hurting my kids. And he agreed that he wouldn't let her see her in person. So my daughter had went to his house, time sharing, and when I got her back, she immediately tells me that she's seen Grandma and Aunt Hannah, my sister. And I was like, what do you mean? So I did text him and I asked, like, hey, you said, he was like, well, it was over FaceTime. So I didn't think it was an issue. Like, I just told him I was really busy for the holidays. So I'm not being honest with them, but I don't really blame him for not wanting to get fully involved. But I was still really pissed that they had done that. It's just further disrespectful to me. So the other contact that I did have with them after going no contact with my mom originally, but apparently with both of them, was texting them and saying, hey, I know we haven't talked, and I know you both understand that I am her mother, and you are my family. So if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't know Amelia, and Amelia would not exist, which is my daughter. You do not have a right to have access to my child if I am telling you no. The fact that you went behind my back to contact her other parent, who you don't even fucking like, by the way, to have access to her, shows me exactly who and what you are. And I'm making it very clear right now that if you continue to contact my child through her other parent, you are disrespecting me. That it is greatly 100% against my wishes that you have any contact with my child. They did further have contact with my child. When my sister had her child, her newest baby, she FaceTimed my daughter on her father's time to show her said baby. Yeah, I'm sure you can hear it in my voice, or if you're watching the video, you can see the tension starting to rise in my body again, because this is an unresolved issue. Currently, they're not having any contact with my daughter for another situation. But the fact that you proved so shortly that I made the right decision is so solidifying and yet so angering at the same time. And no, they did not respond to said text. They don't like being called out. They don't like being told what they can and cannot do. But as parents themselves, they have also agreed with that sentiment. That if you do not respect the parent, if you are abusive to the parent, you do not have a right to that parent's child. Until that child is an adult and can make that decision for themselves, you don't get access to the child of your victim. And I hate that word because I don't want to live in a victim mentality, but I have been the victim of their abuse my entire life, even into adulthood, even until last year when I finally cut them off. And it's heartbreaking, not only for myself, but for my daughter, having to sit down with a 7-year-old and age appropriately explain why I do not want her having contact with my mother and my sister, and why that hurts me, not just for myself, but for her. And continuing to have to uphold these things, it's really fucking hard. So back to the breakdown. Yeah, I wasn't just sad, I was pissed. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how dare you? How dare you not respond to my text about how not only do you disrespect me as a person, as a child, and now as a mother, but then you're going to send me a lock of my hair? Like, I don't feel like there's any innocence behind it. I feel like you are still trying to have some sort of contact and you're coming up with anything that you can to stay in my life or to continue to bother me or try to re-traumatize me. And it is so re-traumatizing. So, not only did I cry, but I also went into my bathroom and eventually called my husband in because as I sat there crying, as I sat there silently screaming, I could just feel that my inner child needed a hug. That this was not just grown-up Katelyn. This was little girl Katelyn that never got loved, never got protected. And many would argue that they did love me, even if it was in the form that they know how to love. And I suppose that could be true. But I was never loved how I needed to be loved. And he did. He came in and he hugged me. And within that meltdown, within that breakdown, I had a lot of revelations. First of all, it was really, really good to just let myself have my feelings when I was having them and not delay it, not say, I really want to break down, but I have to do X, Y, or Z first. You know, because I'm always taking care of someone else first. It was good to get up, come in my room, and feel my feelings in the moment that I was feeling them. And express it in a healthy manner. But one of those revelations was, even in starting this podcast, the way that I have talked about my abusers has been protective. It has not been vague for my own sake. It has been vague for theirs. To protect them from anyone being able to identify them or potentially harm them in any way, which, of course, I do not want. But I mean, even emotionally. I have spent my entire life protecting my abusers. During the abuse and after. I don't tell anyone what my father did to me until this podcast. And I've had plenty of opportunities as an adult to tell everyone exactly who he is. I never told anyone what my mother did. All I ever said was that we had an on-again, off-again relationship because we have differing religious views. I never said all the things that she said to me or all the different ways that she abused me in my childhood or my adulthood until this podcast. I never named her by name. I just say my mother. I've never really used names. I know I've named my sister and my daughter. But they are those people. I feel like in telling my story, I do have a right to share it fully without protection of the person that wronged me. Not in vindictiveness, but in my narrative. I shouldn't have to hold back because I'm still thinking of someone else and what the ramifications of their wrongdoing might have on them. And that was one of the revelations I had. That I've always protected them. And I've always given them an easy way out. Unfortunately, I think, not to make it about my neurodivergence, but I think part of the way that my brain works, part of that autism, is really being able to understand another person's perspective. Being able to understand every single viewpoint and, side of the story. And so in doing so, and being able to see their side of the story, I've always given them an excuse for their behavior. Even my sister, it was, well, she was a child too. She was being influenced by my mom. She did this, she did that. But I haven't just received emotional abuse from my sister or verbal as a child. I've received them as an adult. And yes, I do still understand that a lot of the things she thinks and a lot of the reasons she does the things she does is because of how she was raised. But that does not excuse it. One of the biggest things that I have always kept hidden was that I was not only sexually abused by my father, but I was molested by my oldest brother. And that's still really heavy to say out loud. Because even that one, even that not being her husband, my mother protected over me. Whew, sorry. And all my life, I gave him the excuse of he was just a child. And he was also an abused child. And anyone that knows anything about abused children knows that there is a higher percentage of children who molest other children being victims themselves. It messes with your mind. It's one of the signs. My brother was 16. He was not young. And I'm not saying that 16 is not a child, but we're not talking about an 8-year-old here. We're not talking about a 6-year-old or even an 11-year-old. We're talking about 16 years old. We're talking about a young man who had graduated high school early. We're talking about a young man who knew how to drive a car and had a girlfriend and owned his own business. We are not talking about a child here. We are talking about a 16-year-old brother who molested his 6-year-old sister and nothing was done about it. My mother had a conversation with him in front of all her other children about it, because that's healthy. Made him apologize to me, and that was it. He never seen a therapist. She never got me a therapist. And I blocked it out until I was 13. When I woke up one morning, with a memory that felt like it had happened yesterday. And surprisingly, even in remembering, I was not angry with him. Somehow I understood. I think even then I was... the immediate forgiveness that I felt for him was the brainwashing. Was the, well, he was a child. He's been hurt too. And so I'm sitting there on my bathtub on Saturday. And I'm so fucking angry. Because this is new. This is a new anger for an abuse I thought I had dealt with and healed a long time ago. And I'm pissed. I'm pissed at him. I'm pissed at my mom. And my dad. Not surprised that he didn't do anything though. We use humor to cope, don't we? I'm pissed because regardless of who they are and whether or not I shouldn't be surprised that they didn't help me because they themselves are abusers, I am pissed because they are my parents. And their sole purpose is to protect their children. And they did not. I am pissed because in the ending months of 2023, while being open with my sister and talking about our traumas, she confides in me that my memories of my abuse are hers. That those things actually happened to her. And I'm just remembering her abuse. I think not. I find it absolutely astonishing that someone can say something like that, but it not dawn on them that maybe, just maybe, the same person who lived in the same house as us, who abused me, also abused you. Maybe, just maybe, it's not me remembering your memories, but he did the exact same fucking thing to both of his younger sisters. Because nobody fucking stopped him. Nobody fucking stopped him. And now he's a father. And he married a woman who abused their children and never paid the price for it. And he's best friends with a father who abused me and never fucking paid the price for it. And never will. There's this funny little thing called statute of limitations. So even if I wanted to do something about it now, I couldn't. Be my word against theirs. And this is why so many victims do not speak up. This is why for so long I didn't tell anyone. I hugged my brother. I loved my brother. I pretended like it never happened. I loved my dad. I would hug my dad when I seen him. I'd see him at birthday parties and holiday get-togethers, and nobody knew. And if I came forward, if any member of my family heard this, they would tell me I was lying. They would tell me there was no way the man they know could do something like that. And then they would bring up that for so many years, I've acted like nothing happened. Well, how could you hug him if he hurt you? How could you tell him you love him if he hurt you? Things like this are why people do not speak up. But it's why I'm doing this podcast. It's why I'm telling my story. Because this is the only justice I will ever receive for years of abuse. For the years that I can remember. For the years that I cannot, because my brain has decided I cannot handle it. For every person who's ever went through something like this, or is going through something like this, you do not deserve what anyone else has ever done to you. You are worthy. You are beautiful. You are the victim at the hands of a monster. And it is okay to be angry. You do not just have to be sad. You can get pissed. You can get really, really, really bad. You can scream at the top of your lungs. Like, yell it out. Punch something if you have to. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt anyone else. But you get those feelings out however you have to. Because sometimes that is the only justice you will get. And God, if you have a chance to speak up and get justice in the form of the law, and that's what you want to do, I am here to support you. I do not feel like it is necessary, even if it is doable, because as a victim, that is your choice. Nobody has the right to tell you that you have to do that. You will hear a lot of things about how you deserve justice or you could protect another human being. That is not your job. Your job is to protect yourself. Your job is to take care of yourself. But if that is what you choose to do, I'm here to support you. I will help you in any way that I can. Even if that is what you choose not to do, I will help you in any way that I can. On everywhere that my podcast airs, my email is attached. You can contact me. I am here for you. This shit is not easy. It doesn't stop. It might be something different on a different day. You might heal one trauma and then experience another. But that is the human experience. And in all of this bullshit, there is still beauty. I do still love my life. I am an amazing person. These people tried to fucking break me. So many times. As a child, as an adult, They attempted on so many different occasions and in so many different ways to break me and to break my spirit. And it is not doable. I am living a fulfilled, happy, wonderful life. And I am a whole person. They can't take that from you. So, yeah, this has been an episode. When I say that a lot has happened, a lot has happened. There's been a lot to take in. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. I mean, even after that meltdown, I wanted to text her. I wanted to text my mother and just be like, sit down with me one last time. I want to tell you everything that I feel. But I know that there is no point, as I have had these conversations with my mother. At some point, you have to stop explaining yourself to someone who is not listening. And you have to protect yourself. My body was sending me way too many signals that I had too much on my plate. I had too much on my mental. So I'm choosing me. For real. In the fullest form that I ever have in my entire life. I am choosing me. And now I challenge you to choose you.